Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today, we are making the very last offseason preview video for the 2020 offseason, and this one is for the 2020 NBA champions, the Los Angeles Lakers. We saw the Lakers go into this year's playoffs with lots of skepticism. Lots of people thought that, hey, the Blazers are going to give this team a run for their money. The Rockets are going to give this team a run for their money. I think most people thought they'd take care of the Nuggets after we saw them beat the Blazers and Rockets in 5, but I was dumb enough to pick the Nuggets to win that series. Don't know what I was thinking there, but even in the finals, there were plenty of people that picked the Heat, so throughout, people thought that this team was going to lose, but really they were never particularly challenged. The Heat were the only team to take them to more than 5 games. And the only reason why the Heat were able to do that was because Jimmy Butler played like Michael Jordan for 2 games, where he had a 35-point triple-double and a 40-point triple-double. So this Lakers team has to be considered a strong favorite to repeat next season, and let's talk about some ways that they can improve their roster to continue to elevate their team to that championship level and continue to better it, because they weren't perfect. Let's just say that. There are areas where they can improve. Their coach is Frank Vogel. I think that Frank Vogel is not getting talked about enough for the job he did with this team. He got buy-in from LeBron James from day one. He got buy-in from Anthony Davis from day one. This is the best defense we've seen LeBron play in years. And the whole roster really bought in. They were giving it everything on the defensive end of the floor, and the results, you can't argue with them. They weren't the best defensive team statistically during the regular season, but in the postseason, we just saw them completely shut teams down. Whether it was, Damian Lillard, they had a fantastic scheme for him. Well, it really wasn't even a scheme. It was just guys like Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and Danny Green put pressure on him full court, and it really got in his head. And then we would see times where Damian Lillard would just be standing in the corner, and when you're a team like the Trailblazers that has really only one superstar and then a big drop-off to your second best player, big drop-off to CJ McCollum, it's not what you want when you can't have the ball in your best player's hands for the majority of the game. So that's where this team kind of struggled. And in the Blazers, I mean, not the Lakers. The Lakers did a fantastic job scheming, and it forced the Blazers to struggle. Second round, the Houston Rockets. Game 1, they struggled again, the Lakers did. They lost, and a lot of people were saying, okay, Houston, that was nice. Let's see what you can do. Can you give the Lakers a run for their money? No, they couldn't. Frank Vogel schemed up a terrific defense to shut down Harden. They started, instead of blitzing him for entire possessions, they would wait until the end of a possession, and at that point there wasn't much that Harden could do. And he really struggled. I think he had a game where he was like 2 for 12 or something like that. It wasn't pretty. This Lakers team, just their defensive identity was huge. The Nuggets series, they did give up a lot of stuff to Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic and Jeremy Grant, but they were still holding the Nuggets consistently in the 90s to low 100s. Same with the Heat. I don't think that this team allowed the opponent to score 120 points a single time this entire postseason, which is just so impressive for a 21-game run in 2020 due to the pace of play and the amount of three-point shots being taken. I'm so impressed with Frank Vogel, and I think that he really, really should get a lot of respect as being one of the best coaches in the NBA after what we saw from him this year. The first way that the Lakers can improve this offseason is through the draft, where they have the 28th pick. I think they should really be going point guard here. There's some options in this area of the draft on the wing. I mean, if Desmond Bane were to fall to 28, I would be all over that if I were the Lakers, but I really don't think that he's going to. They don't really need big men, because in the playoffs they're going to want to be playing Anthony Davis at the 5. I do think that Xavier Tillman could be a very interesting option alongside AD as a guy that can be another really good defender for this Lakers squad and also a pretty good passer. from the post. I do think that could be an interesting fit. But outside of him, I really would be thinking about the point guard position. And there are some pretty good point guards in this area of the draft that I think are going to end up being starting point guards in the NBA, as I mentioned yesterday. I don't think that they're going to be great starting point guards. Maybe none of them will ever be an above average starting point guard, but I do think that they can end up being a good a good floor general for your franchise and someone that you're comfortable starting in playoff games down the line. The first person I would really be looking at if I were the Lakers is Trey Jones from Duke. Jones had a lot of college success. He was excellent in college, and I do think that he is going to wind up being a really solid NBA player due to his ability as a playmaker. He can shoot the ball a bit, and he's an excellent defender at the point of attack. And the Lakers could really benefit from adding him. I think that a Trey Jones, Anthony Davis pick and roll could be pretty fun for years to come. And I think that he would be an outstanding grab for them at 28. In a similar vein, I would also really like Malachi Flynn for them. I'm not sure that Malachi will be on the board at 28, but if he is, I think he'll probably be the best player remaining. He's just really, really good. He can shoot the ball well. He's a good playmaker. He's an excellent defender. Really smart guy. High basketball IQ. I love Malachi. He's one of my favorite prospects in the draft, as I said yesterday. And I'm really excited to see where he ends up in the draft because I do think that he's going to wind up being a really, really solid NBA player. The final option. There's plenty more. Guys like Tyrell Terry or Theo Maledon could be other candidates for them, but I like Cassius Winston to the Lakers quite a bit because I do see some Rondo in him as a pesky defensive point guard. Not a great athlete, but has some playmaking. He's also a far better shooter than Rondo, and I think that Cassius could be an excellent point guard of the future for the Lakers and someone that they should really consider drafting with the 28th pick. In terms of trades this offseason, the one package that we're going to see floated around a lot for the Lakers is Kyle Kuzma, Danny Green, and the 28th pick. I think that they could probably get something pretty solid for this package. I think that the Pistons would love to do this for Derrick Rose. I think that the Pacers would maybe consider this for Miles Turner, although there might not be enough here for Turner. The Pacers could probably get some better offers. Maybe this could get you Buddy Hield from the Sacramento Kings. All of those options could be very interesting fits with the Lakers. Hield could provide some great floor spacing. Turner, I don't think would be great due to Anthony Davis playing the 5 a lot in the playoffs, but who was the first one I saw? Oh, Derrick Rose could add a really nice playmaking element to this team and another great scorer. Him and Hield could be very interesting options with that package, and I do think that both of their teams would at least consider that trade because Kyle Kuzma is a promising young player who I'm not super high on, but I'm sure there's at least one team out there that would be pretty interested in Kuzma. Danny Green is a veteran role player. You know what you're going to get from him. He wasn't great in the playoffs, but it's still Danny Green. He's one of the best playoff performers ever from a role player. And the 28th pick does have some value. It's a first-round pick, and you can bring in, not knock out, a pretty solid young role player, especially in this draft where I think that there's excellent role player depth pretty much all the way into the mid-second round. Finally, in free agency, this is the biggest part of the Lakers offseason. They have a lot of decisions to make. The first one should be very easy. Extend Anthony Davis and give him whatever contract he wants. I think the most likely thing for him to do is sign a 2+1 so that his contract expires when he hits that 10th year and he's eligible for that 10-year veteran maximum, which would pay him a lot of money. So I do think that that's the most likely route we see Anthony Davis take. And I think if you're the Lakers, you just give him whatever. Obviously, you give him whatever he wants. He is, well, your second best player for now, but he is the future of your franchise, and you just have to pay him. He's the top 7 player in the NBA. He's terrific. This is not a question. However, their other three free agents are at least a little bit interesting. There's a lot of guys like JaVale McGee, Avery Bradley that have player options, but since those guys weren't really a part of their playoff rotation, I won't touch on them here. I'm only going to touch on the guys that are actually part of their playoff rotation. First, it's Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. He has probably earned a raise with his stellar play in the finals, scoring 48 points in the last three finals games combined. I do think that there might be some interest from teams like the Atlanta Hawks and maybe the New York Knicks as guys that can be solid, as a guy that can be a solid role player for these young teams and provide a good veteran presence and a championship presence at that. But I think that the Lakers will bring KCP back eventually, maybe on a deal similar to what we saw Danny Green get, maybe a little less than that. But KCP was a very important contributor to their championship team, and I would be surprised to see them let him walk. Rajon Rondo is a player option, and he is similar to KCP in that he probably has earned a raise from like the veteran minimum $2 million deal he was getting paid on. I think that he'll probably get something in like the $5 to $8 million range annually. Maybe it's another 1+1 deal. I think that's probably pretty likely. And they should really want to bring Rondo back because he's an important contributor for them in the playoffs. And there should be mutual interest there from Rondo because I'm not sure his fit with other teams is that great. Finally, you have Markieff Morris, who is a solid guy for them. He played some small ball five. He played a lot of minutes on the wing. And I do think that they should probably keep him around just to keep this championship core intact. Some other targets outside of just retaining the outgoing guys, if they could bring in Tristan Thompson, I think that he would be an excellent big man for them. Someone that could actually play in the playoffs a bit more than Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee did due to his nice footwork. He can actually guard some cats on the perimeter, and I think that if he's interested in being reunited with LeBron, he could be a very, very nice free agent pickup for them. And Justin Holiday as a wing who can give you some good minutes is another person who I think the Lakers should be interested in and should have a pretty solid market from them. Overall, this Lakers team has a really strong chance to repeat, in my opinion. They have two of the best 7 players in the NBA, which is just huge for them. I think that we will see continued growth from this core as we're going to see some very good veteran role players want to join this team as a bit of a ring chase. So I do think that there's a strong chance that this team repeats, and it's crazy to think how far they've come in just a few years from being one of the laughingstock franchises with how poorly this team's outlook looked just a couple years ago, whereas now they really, really have cemented themselves as a championship player year in and year out. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like and subscribe. Comment on what you think the Lakers should do this offseason. That's it for me. Ladies and gentlemen, I will see you all again very soon.